Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another edition of Times Past. My name's Ed Josephs, and once again this evening it is our extreme pleasure to have with us Mr. Harold Boothroyd, curator of the Benjamin Conant collection at the Wenham Historical Society and Museum. Welcome, Harold. Welcome back to our Times Past program. This is our second in a series of what will probably be 4 or 5, featuring the life and times of Mr. Benjamin Conant, a native of Wenham and, among other things, a photographer who was most responsible for allowing us to look back 100 years and to see what it was like in your town, in your adopted town, I might say. You're a Beverly native, having graduated from Beverly High School in 1941, and then after the Navy, you moved over to Wenham, where you've lived for many, many years, and have become an important fixture over there in terms of historical research and preservation, and we all owe you a great debt indeed for what you're doing there. So welcome to the program, my friend, and Benjamin Conant is, as we say, one of Wenham's finest, and could you just tell us just a wee bit about his life and times, just to get us going here? We've covered most of it in the first program, but a little review perhaps.
Well, I think it's fair to say that he had one means of transportation, and that was probably his legs, and the second thing he had was a bicycle, but it didn't carry him too far. It probably carried him into Hamilton, and it carried him a glimpse of this end of Topsfield, and it carried him into Beverly. However, he did work in a shoe factory, Woodbury Shoe Factory, down on the corner of Park Street and Federal Street. And this is where he got some of the earlier shots that were shown in the first
program.
Yes.
So actually, in our first program, we did start on our tour, which was at the Frank Woodbury Shoe Factory, corner of Park and Federal Street, and we showed a few of his pictures taken in and around the Beckford Street area. We ran out of time, and we're about to join him in our travelogue up in North Beverly, Harold. So without further ado, I think we've got many, many pictures here this evening to show our audience. Why don't we get started with our first photograph here, which, as I have it in front of me, is a view of Wenham Lake in 1891, Harold.
Yeah, this is a shot that he took from the park area of the Salem Waterworks. At that time, they had a Beverly Waterworks, a separate plant, and a Salem Waterworks, a separate plant. However, I think they've combined now, and it's Beverly Salem Water Board.
Does any of this look as it might look today up there?
Yes, I think the park itself, I think, looks, and the view of the shoreline. If you look right about in the middle, you'll see a glimpse of what looks like an ice house. It's before they apparently put a pitched roof on it. It was a flat ice house, and that is they had 2 big buildings, and you can just see a glimpse of it.
That would be over across the lake, approximately where the McDonald restaurant is today, up on Enon Street.
Yes.
a ways up on going towards
It
Wales.
might not be quite as far as McDonald's, but it's near the new shopping center that they put in.
So we're looking at a picture here that's 101 years old.
You got it.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, next, 1895 in October, he took a picture of this small side wheeler here.
Yeah. One interesting thing about this particular boat, it was one of the earlier gasoline engines, and it had a walking beam, which you can see on there, and then that operated through a crankshaft to the paddle wheels. So it was kind of a Rube Goldberg type boat.
We featured this on one of our North Beverly programs with Rich Sims.
Okay.
We both agreed that we wouldn't want to stand too close to that thing if it started to malfunction. Quite a contraption there.
Isn't it?
Yeah. September of 1891, Mrs. Fry had a little cottage up there on Wenham Lake, which was in the North Beverly area. Harold?
I think people tended to build cottages around lakes, and evidently this was one of the few available land pieces, and you can see it was the North Beverly side of the ice house. You can see a glimpse of the ice house right after this particular little house here.
Because these were the days also when one could fish and boat and swim even up there.
That's correct,
So
right.
there were no restrictions as to what you might do on the lake during this period of time.
This was also, this early period was when the ice was relatively pure, not having too many sources to bring the water in during the dry season.
And we didn't have the Putnamville Reservoir feeding into it and other sources.
And Longham was just about being constructed.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, we swing back over to what is now Enon Street, and I assume what was then Enon Street. It's dated January 21, winter of 1892.
And the thing that I'd want you to observe, these two little houses along are still they are still on Enon Street. Yeah.
We're going to show right now on the camera. I have taken a picture last winter. I took a picture approximately standing where Mr. Conant must have stood, and you can actually see the houses and the curve of the road, and even the trees off here to the left are still quite evident, and it looks kind of like it did back then, with of course the trolley track gone.
Yeah.
Long gone.
One of the things you should keep in your mind in looking at this picture, looking north, the trolley track was in Beverly was on the right-hand side of the street, and as we go down Pond Hill, we'll show you that they switch across and go to the left-hand side.
Front of the hill.
Yeah.
Now, down at the bottom of this sheet, Harold, we have the Needham house. A family by the name of Needham lived on Enon Street in that general area, 1891.
This is just a view looking south instead of looking north.
Okay.
Which once again shows the track and the two houses.
Yep. All righty. Waters Cottage, and this is Enon Street and Main Street looking north toward Wenham Lake. We're still in North Beverly?
We're still in North Beverly. We're approaching, I think the view on this next one shows you the marker.
Yeah.
But Waters Cottage is still there, and the house is
Still standing.
Principally the same way that it was. That barn out back is not there anymore, but I vaguely remember that as a child.
Well, and again we have at the bottom here January 21, 1892, Enon and Main Street. Again, North Beverly, getting very close to the Wenham line here.
That's true. There's a marker right near the left-hand telephone pole and that's basically the boundary between Beverly and Wenham.
Yeah.
Still note that the tracks, even at the top of Pond Hill, still on the right-hand side of the road, looking north.
They will not swap over until we get around the bend.
We just start getting down the hill, and they do a zip across the street.
Yep. Yep. Interesting also to note the dates of these pictures. They all cluster around the year of 1891, 1892, 92, and 3.
I think he was younger then, and he was into photography, which was a new medium for him, and he wanted to try his cameras out. He probably didn't stay with the 8x10 camera too long because of the expense of the film and the handling. And 5x7 seemed to be his best one. Then he dropped down to 4x5 portraits and people pictures.
But it seems like he did all of his North Beverly photography in this period of time, this 2 or 3 year stretch, and later on in his career as a photographer, he concentrated more into Wenham and Hamilton.
Oh, true. We've more or less arranged these as a trip down.
We're following
1A.
a specific route here,
right.
As it will unfold. Now we're looking at an 1891 November 13 picture, Main Street again, looking north, right at the top of Pond Hill, where it begins that curve.
And if you can see a glimpse of the track, it's started to go across the street.
Yes, it has.
Right near the entrance to that house that is up there.
Yep. And again, another view now, we can actually see the lake. We are into Wenham here on this photograph, 1891 in November, and we can see the familiar curve as we know it today.
And it is already crossed the street.
It has crossed the street.
Right.
And the lake, of course, looks very much like it looks today, actually, at that down in the basin there.
There's a little house on the right is Pond John Dodge's site of Pond John Dodge's house.
Yeah.
And the one you see in the distance is farther along Route 1A, and that's Lafayette Bachelor's house.
One of the bachelor houses.
Right.
Right. Okay, 1893 in November. He did a lot of photography in the cool months, Harold. He was out in the wintertime. It didn't faze him at all to go trucking around with
his cameras work well.
Here we are around the hill here, Pond Hill. We're looking north.
This is similar to the other one, only it's more concentrated
compacted,
on the, right.
And then he kind of climbs that hill here. Of course, this is a few years later. This picture dates 1909, but he's climbed up on that hill and he looks down over Main Street, which, by the way, it becomes Main Street as it crosses the Beverly line.
Correct.
From Enon Street, it becomes Main Street, Wenham. Same road. And
I might add the fact that I did sneak this one in. This is not a Conant photograph. This is an A.B. Norton. But it did show a good, and it also shows right about in the middle, there's a rather large house, and that's the Massasoit house. We'll come to that a little later.
Come to that one, yeah. I'm sure Mr. Conant would approve of Mr. Norton's picture in here.
Well, at least we got the right continuity.
Okay, back to the year of 1893. We're looking through the bushes at Wenham Lake, again, on going down the other side of Pond Hill on the Wenham side. And is that the Massasoit house?
Yes, that's the glimpse we see over there is the Massasoit house.
We might mention right now that this was supposedly going to be a hotel or a resort area for people to come and enjoy the lake, but it never quite got off the ground. We'll talk more about that, Harold, when we get over to that side of the lake.
It's intent, and I don't know how long that it lasted, but the intent was that people could come for a week or so and enjoy the view of the lake, and it's probably rented for that purpose. It's
interesting, just to digress a minute about that street that we now call Route 1A. Of course, it starts out in Beverly as Cabot Street, and you get up to Dodge Street,
It's
which
Enon.
is still the same street, and then it changes its name to Enon Street.
Right.
Goes across the border to Wenham. Into Wenham, it becomes Main Street, and then when you cross into Hamilton, it becomes Bay Road. But it's all the same highway.
Right.
And
Right.
4 or 5 different names attached to it.
These are the prerogatives, I guess, that the towns
True.
have.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
In
Now,
naming.
we have a 1900, August of 1900 picture here at Wenham Lake. A nice view across the pond, as we might call it, looking over to the other side.
Yeah, this is
northern side.
probably just almost down the bottom of the pond hill, you know, where the view you can see over almost across to the northern side of the lake.
Yeah.
You can see a ridge over there where they took out a lot of gravel. It used to be a hill over there. In fact, that's an area over there that they did pull down. They used to have Peter's monument used to be on a hill, and I understand that they moved that closer to 1A.
Where it is today.
Where it is today.
Yeah. And we're talking about Reverend Hugh Peter, the first minister that came into Wenham in the 1600s and